Shalom and welcome back to the Cepher Daily Readings. I am Trish. Thank you for stopping by to follow along. All praise and glory to the Most High Yah in the name of the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. I pray this is a blessing to you and may it honor our Father. We are in Jasher, Yashar, chapter 46. In those days, Yosef was still confined in the prison house in the land of Mitzrayim. At that time, the attendants of Pharaoh were standing before him, the chief of the butlers and the chief of the bakers, which belonged to the king of Mitzrayim. And the butler took wine and placed it before the king to drink, and the baker placed bread before the king to eat. And the king drank of the wine and ate of the bread, he and his servants and ministers that ate at the king's table. And while they were eating and drinking, the butler and the baker remained there. And Pharaoh's ministers found many flies in the wine, which the butler had brought, and stones of niter were found in the baker's bread. And the captain of the guard placed Joseph as an attendant on the Pharaoh's officers, and Pharaoh's officers were in confinement 1 year. And at the end of the year, they both dreamed dreams in one night, in the place of confinement where they were. And in the morning, Joseph came to them to attend upon them as usual. And he saw them, and behold, their countenances were dejected and sad. And Joseph asked them, Why are your countenances sad and dejected this day? And they said unto him, We dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. And Joseph said unto them, Relate, I pray you, your dreams unto me, and Elohim shall give you an answer of peace as you desire. And the butler related his dream unto Joseph, and he said, I saw in my dream, and behold, a large vine was before me, and upon that vine I saw 3 branches, and the vine speedily blossomed and reached a great height, and its clusters were ripened and became grapes. And I took the grapes and pressed them in a cup and placed it in Pharaoh's hand, and he drank. And Joseph said unto him, The 3 branches that were upon the vine are 3 days. Yet within 3 days the king will order you to be brought out, and he will restore you to your office. And you shall give the king his wine to drink, as at first when you were his butler. But let me find favor in your sight, that you shall remember me to Pharaoh when it will be well with you. And do kindness unto me, and get me brought forth from this prison. For I was stolen away from the land of Canaan, and was sold for a slave in this place. And also that which was told you concerning my Adonij's woman is false. For they placed me in this dungeon for naught. And the butler answered Joseph, saying, If the king deals well with me, as at first, as you last interpreted to me, I will do all that you desire, and get you brought out of this dungeon. And the baker, seeing that Joseph had accurately interpreted the butler's dream, also approached, and related the whole of his dream to Joseph. And he said unto him, In my dream I saw, and behold, 3 white baskets upon my head. And I looked, and behold, there were in the uppermost basket all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh. And behold, the birds were eating them from off my head. And Joseph said unto him, The 3 baskets which you did see are 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh will take off your head, and hang you upon a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh from off you, as you saw in your dream. In those days the queen was about to be delivered, and upon that day she bore a son unto the king of Mitzrayim. And they proclaimed that the king had gotten his firstborn son, and all the people of Mitzrayim, together with the officers and servants of Pharaoh, rejoiced greatly. And upon the 3rd day of his birth, Pharaoh made a feast for his officers and servants, for the hosts of the land of Zor and of the land of Mitzrayim. And all the people of Mitzrayim and the servants of Pharaoh came to eat and drink with the king at the feast of his son, and to rejoice at the king's rejoicing. And all the officers of the king and his servants were rejoicing at that time for 8 days at the feast. And they made merry with all sorts of musical instruments, with timbrels and with dances in the king's house for 8 days. And the butler, to whom Joseph had interpreted his dream, forgot Joseph, and he did not mention him to the king as he had promised. For that, for this thing was from Yahuwah in order to punish Yosef, because he had trusted in man. And Yosef remained after this in the prison house for 2 years, until he had completed 12 years. Chapter 47. And Yitzhak, the son of Abraham, was still living in those days in the land of Canaan. He was very aged, 180 years old. And Esau, his son, the brother of Yaakov, was in the land of Edom, and he and his sons had possessions in it amongst the children of Seir. And Esau heard that his father's time was drawing nigh to die, and he and his sons and household came unto the land of Canaan, unto his father's house. And Yaakov and his sons went forth from the place where they dwelt in Hebron. And they all came to their father Yitzhak, and they found Esau and his sons in the tent. And Yaakov and his sons sat before his father Yitzhak, and Yaakov was still mourning for his son Yosef. And Yitzhak said unto Yaakov, Bring me hither your sons, and I will bless them. And Yaakov brought his 11 children before his father Yitzhak. And Yitzhak placed his hands upon all the sons of Yaakov, and he took hold of them, and embraced them, and kissed them one by one. And Yitzhak blessed them on that day. And he said unto them, May the Elohim of your fathers bless you and increase your seed like the stars of heaven for number. And Yitzhak also blessed the sons of Esau, saying, May Elohim cause you to be a dread and a terror to all that will behold you, and to all your enemies. And Yitzhak called Yaakov and his sons, and they all came and sat before Yitzhak. And Yitzhak said unto Yaakov, Yahuwah Elohim of the whole earth said unto me, Unto your seed will I give this land for an inheritance, if your children guard my statutes and my ways. And I will perform unto them the oath which I swore unto your father Abraham. Now, therefore, my son, teach your children and your children's children to fear Yahuwah, and to go in the good way which will please Yahuwah Elohika. For if you guard the ways of Yahuwah and his statutes, Yahuwah will also guard unto you his covenant with Abraham, and will do well with you and your seed all the days. And when Yitzhak had finished commanding Yaakov and his children, he gave up his ruach and died, and was gathered unto his people. And Yaakov and Esau fell upon the face of their father Yitzhak, and they wept. And Yitzhak was 180 years old when he died in the land of Canaan, in Hebron. And his sons carried him to the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham had brought from the children of Heth for a possession of a burial place. And all the kings of the land of Canaan went with Yaakov and Esau to bury Yitzhak. And all the kings of Canaan showed Yitzhak great honor at his death. And the sons of Yaakov and the sons of Esau went barefooted round about, walking and lamenting until they reached Kirat Arba. And Yaakov and Esau buried their father Yitzhak in the cave of Machpelah, which is in Kirat Arba in Hebron, and they buried him with very great honor, as at the funeral of kings. And Yaakov and his sons, and Esau and his sons, and all the kings of Canaan made a great and heavy mourning, and they buried him and mourned for him many days. And at the death of Yitzhak, he left his cattle and his possessions and all belonging to him to his sons. And Esau said unto Yaakov, Behold, I pray you, all that our father has left, we will divide it in 2 parts, and I will have the choice. And Yaakov said, We will do so. And Yaakov took all that Yitzhak had left in the land of Canaan, the cattle and the property, and he placed them in 2 parts before Esau and his sons. And he said unto Esau, Behold, all this is before you. Choose you unto yourself the half which you will take. And Yaakov said unto Esau, Hear you, I pray you, what I will speak unto you, saying, Yahuwah Elohim of heaven and earth spoke unto our fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, saying, Unto your seed will I give this land for an inheritance forever. Now, therefore, all that our father has left is before you, and behold, all the land is before you. Choose you from them what you desire. If you desire the whole land, take it for you and your children forever. And I will take these riches, and if you desire the riches, take it unto you. And I will take this land for me and for my children to inherit it forever. And Nebaioth, the son of Yishmael, was then in the land with his children. And Esau went on that day and consulted with him, saying, Thus has Yaakov spoken unto me, and thus he has answered me. Now, give your advice, and we will hear. And Nebaioth said, What is this that Yaakov has spoken unto you? Behold, all the children of Canaan are dwelling securely in their land. And Yaakov says he will inherit it with his seed all the days. Go now, therefore, and take all your father's riches, and leave Yaakov your brother in the land, as he has spoken. And Esau rose up and returned to Yaakov, and did all that Nebaioth, the son of Yishmael, had advised. And Esau took all the riches that Yitzhak had left, the souls, the beasts, the cattle, and the property, and all the riches. He gave nothing to his brother Yaakov. And Yaakov took all the land of Canaan, from the brook of Mitzrayim unto the river Perath. And he took it for an everlasting possession, and for his children, and for his seed after him forever. Yaakov also took from his brother Esau the cave of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, which Abraham had brought from Ephron for a possession of a burial place for him and his seed forever. And Yaakov wrote all these things in the Cepher of purchase, and he signed it, and he testified all this with 4 faithful witnesses. And these are the words which Yaakov wrote in the Cepher, saying, The land of Canaan, and all the cities of the Hittiim, the Hivrim, and the Yebusim, the Amorim, the Perizim, and the Girgashim, all the 7 nations from the river of Mitzrayim unto the river Perath, and the city of Hebron, Kirat Arba, and the cave, which is in it, the whole did Yaakov buy from his brother Esau for value, for a possession, and for an inheritance for his seed after him forever. And Yaakov took the Cepher of purchase and the signature, and the command and the statutes, and the revealed Cepher, and he placed them in an earthen vessel in order that they should remain for a long time. And he delivered them into the hands of his children. Esau took all that his father had left after his death from his brother Yaakov, and he took all the property, from man and beast, camel and ass, ox and lamb, silver and gold, stones and bdellium, and all the riches which had belonged to Yitzhak, the son of Abraham. There was nothing left which Esau did not take unto himself, from all that Yitzhak had left after his death. And Esau took all this, and he and his children went home to the land of Seir, the Hori, away from his brother Yaakov and his children. And Esau had possessions amongst the children of Seir, and Esau returned not to the land of Canaan from that day forward. And the whole land of Canaan became an inheritance to the children of Yasharel for an everlasting inheritance. And Esau with all his children inherited the mountain of Seir. Chapter 48. In those days, after the death of Yitzhak, Yahuwah commanded and caused a famine upon the whole earth. At that time, Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, was sitting upon his throne in the land of Mitzrayim, and lay in his bed and dreamed dreams. And Pharaoh saw in his dream that he was standing by the side of the river of Mitzrayim. And while he was standing, he saw, and behold, 7 fat-fleshed and well-favored kine came up out of the river. And 7 other kine, lean, fleshed, and ill-favored, came up after them. And the 7 ill-favored ones swallowed up the well-favored ones. And still their appearance was ill as at first. And he awoke, and he slept again, and he dreamed a second time. And he saw, and behold, 7 ears of grain came up upon one stalk, rank and good. And 7 thin ears, blasted with the east wind, sprang up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the full ones. And Pharaoh awoke out of his dream. And in the morning the king remembered his dreams. and his ruach was sadly troubled on account of his dreams. And the king hastened and sent and called for all the magicians of Mitzrayim and the wise men, and they came and stood before Pharaoh. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed dreams, and there is none to interpret them. And they said unto the king, Relate your dreams to your servants, and let us hear them. And the king related his dreams to them. And they all answered and said with one voice to the king, May the king live forever. And this is the interpretation of your dreams. The seven good kine which you did see denote seven daughters that will be born unto you in the latter days. And the seven kine which you saw come up after them and swallowed them up are for a sign that the daughters who will be born unto you will all die in the lifetime of the king. And that which you did see in the second dream of seven full good ears of grain coming up upon one stalk, this is their interpretation, that you will build unto yourself in the latter days 7 cities throughout the land of Mitzrayim. And that which you saw of the 7 blasted ears of grain springing up after them and swallowing them up while you did behold them with your eyes, is for a sign that the cities which you will build will all be destroyed in the latter days, in the lifetime of the king. And when they spoke these words, the king did not incline his ear to their words, neither did he fix his heart upon them. For the king knew in his wisdom that they did not give a proper interpretation of the dreams. And when they had finished speaking before the king answered them, saying, What is this thing that you have spoken unto me? Surely you have uttered falsehoods and spoken lies. Therefore, now give the proper interpretation of my dreams, that you may not die. And the king commanded after this, and he sent and called again for other wise men. And they came and stood before the king. And the king related his dreams to them, and they all answered him according to the first interpretation. And the king's anger was kindled, and he was very angry. And the king said unto them, Surely you speak lies and utter falsehood in what you have said. And the king commanded that a proclamation should be issued throughout the land of Mitzrayim, saying, It is resolved by the king and his great men, that any wise man who knows and understands the interpretation of dreams, and will not come this day before the king, he shall die. And the man that will declare unto the king the proper interpretation of his dreams, there shall be given unto him all that he will require from the king. And all the wise men of the land of Mitzrayim came before the king, together with all the magicians and sorcerers that were in Mitzrayim, and in Goshen, in Ramses, in Tachpanach, in Zor, and in all the places on the borders of Mitzrayim. And they all stood before the king. And all the nobles and the princes and the attendants belonging to the king came together from all the cities of Mitzrayim. And they all sat before the king, and the king related his dreams before the wise men. And the princes and all that sat before the king were astonished at the vision. And all the wise men who were before the king were greatly divided in their interpretation of his dreams. Some of them interpreted them to the king, saying, The 7 good kine are 7 kings, who from the king's issue will be raised over Mitzrayim. And the 7 bad kine are 7 princes, who will stand up against them in the latter days, and destroy them. And the 7 ears of grain are the 7 great princes belonging to Mitzrayim, who will fall in the hands of the 7 less powerful princes of their enemies, in the wars of our Adonai the king. And some of them interpreted to the king in this manner, saying, The 7 good kine are the strong cities of Mitzrayim, and the 7 bad kine are the 7 nations of the land of Canaan, who will come against the 7 cities of Mitzrayim in the latter days, and destroy them. And that which you saw in the second dream of 7 good and bad ears of grain is a sign that the government of Mitzrayim will again return to your seed as at first. And in his reign, the people of the cities of Mitzrayim will turn against the 7 cities of Canaan, who are stronger than they are, and will destroy them. And the government of Mitzrayim will return to your seed. And some of them said unto the king, This is the interpretation of your dreams. The 7 good kine are 7 queens, whom you will take for women in the latter days. And the 7 bad kine denote that those women will all die in the lifetime of the king. And the 7 good and bad ears of grain which you did see in the second dream are 14 children. And it will be in the latter days that they will stand up and fight amongst themselves. And 7 of them will smite the 7 that are more powerful. And some of them said these words unto the king, saying, The 7 good kine denote that 7 children will be born to you, and they will slay 7 of your children's children in the latter days. And the 7 good ears of grain which you did see in the second dream are those princes against whom 7 other less powerful princes will fight and destroy them in the latter days, and avenge your children's cause. And the government will again return to your seed. And the king heard all the words of the wise men of Mitzrayim, and their interpretation of his dreams, and none of them pleased the king. And the king knew in his wisdom that they did not altogether speak correctly in all these words. For this was from Yahuwah to frustrate the words of the wise men of Mitzrayim, in order that Yosef might go forth from the house of confinement, and in order that he should become great in Mitzrayim. And the king saw that none amongst all the wise men and magicians of Mitzrayim spoke correctly to him. And the king's wrath was kindled, and his anger burned within him. And the king commanded that all the wise men and magicians should go out from before him. And they all went out from before the king with shame and disgrace. And the king commanded that a proclamation be sent throughout Mitzrayim to slay all the magicians that were in Mitzrayim, and not one of them should be suffered to live. And the captains of the guards belonging to the king rose up, and each man drew his sword, and they began to smite the magicians of Mitzrayim and the wise men. And after this, Merod, chief butler to the king, came and bowed down before the king and sat before him. And the butler said unto the king, May the king live forever, and his government be exalted in the land. You were angry with your servant in those days. Now 2 years passed, and did place me in the ward. And I was for some time in the ward, I and the chief of the bakers. And there was with us an Ivri servant belonging to the captain of the guard. His name was Yosef, for his Adonai had been angry with him and placed him in the house of confinement, and he attended us there. And in some time after when we were in the ward, we dreamed dreams in one night. I and the chief of the bakers, we dreamed, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And we came in the morning and told them to that servant, and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream. Did he correctly interpret? And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so was the event. There fell not to the ground any of his words. And now, therefore, my Adonai and king, do not slay the people of Mitzrayim for naught. Behold, that slave is still confined in the house by the captain of the guard, his Adonai, in the house of confinement. If it pleases the king, let him send for him that he may come before you, and he will make known to you the correct interpretation of the dream which you did dream. And the king heard the words of the chief butler. And the king ordered that the wise men of Mitzrayim should not be slain. And the king ordered his servants to bring Yosef before him. And the king said unto them, Go to him, and do not terrify him, lest he be confused and will not know to speak properly. And the servants of the king went to Yosef, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And the king's servants shaved him, and he changed his prison garment, and he came before the king. And the king was sitting upon his royal throne in a princely dress girt around with a golden ephod. And the fine gold which was upon it sparkled, and the carbuncle, and the ruby, and the emerald, together with all the precious stones that were upon the king's head, dazzled the eye. And Yosef wondered greatly at the king. And the throne upon which the king sat was covered with gold and silver, and with onyx stones, and it had 70 steps. And it was their custom throughout the land of Mitzrayim that every man who came to speak to the king, if he was a prince or one that was estimable in the sight of the king, he ascended to the king's throne as far as the 31st step. And the king would descend to the 36th step and speak with him. If he was one of the common people, he ascended to the 3rd step, and the king would descend to the 4th and speak to him. And their custom was, moreover, that any man who understood to speak in all the 70 languages, he ascended the 70 steps and went up and spoke till he reached the king. And any man who could not complete the 70, he ascended as many steps as the languages which he knew to speak in. And it was customary in those days in Mitzrayim that no one should reign over them, but who understood to speak in the 70 languages. And when Yosef came before the king, he bowed down to the ground before the king, and he ascended to the 3rd step. And the king sat upon the 4th step and spoke with Yosef. And the king said unto Yosef, I dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter to interpret it properly. And I commanded this day that all the magicians of Mitzrayim and the wise men thereof should come before me. And I related my dreams to them, and no one has properly interpreted them to me. And after this, I this day heard concerning you that you are a wise man, and can correctly interpret every dream that you hear. And Yosef answered Pharaoh, saying, Let Pharaoh relate his dreams that he dreamed. Surely the interpretations belong to Elohim. And Pharaoh related his dreams to Yosef, the dream of the kine, and the dream of the ears of grain. And the king left off speaking. And Yosef was then clothed with the Ruach Elohim before the king. And he knew all the things that would befall the king from that day forward. And he knew the proper interpretation of the king's dream. And he spoke before the king. And Yosef found favor in the sight of the king. And the king inclined his ears and his heart, and he heard all the words of Yosef. And Yosef said unto the king, Do not imagine that there are 2 dreams, for it is only one dream. For that which Elohim has chosen to do throughout the land, he has shown to the king in his dream. And this is the proper interpretation of your dream. The 7 good kine and ears of grain are 7 years, and the 7 bad kine and ears of grain are also 7 years. It is one dream. Behold, the 7 years that are coming there will be a great plenty throughout the land, and after that the 7 years of famine will follow them, a grievous famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten from the land, and the famine will consume the inhabitants of the land. The king dreamed one dream, and the dream was therefore repeated unto Pharaoh, because the thing is established by Elohim, and Elohim will shortly bring it to pass. Now, therefore, I will give you counsel and deliver your soul and the souls of the inhabitants of the land from the evil of the famine, that you seek throughout your kingdom for a man very discreet and wise, who knows all the affairs of government, and appoint him to superintend over the land of Mitzrayim. And let the man whom you place over Mitzrayim appoint officers under him, that they gather in all the food of the good years that are coming, and let them lay up grain and deposit it in your appointed stores. And let them keep that food for the 7 years of famine, that it may be found for you and your people and your whole land, that you and your land be not cut off by the famine. Let all the inhabitants of the land be also ordered that they gather in, every man the produce in his field, of all sorts of food, during the 7 good years, and that they place it in their stores, that it may be found for them in the days of the famine, and that they may live upon it. This is the proper interpretation of your dream, and this is the counsel given to save your soul and the souls of all your subjects. And the king answered and said unto Yosef, Who says and who knows that your words are correct? And he said unto the king, This shall be a sign for you respecting all my words, that they are true, and that my advice is good for you. Behold, your woman sits this day upon the stool of delivery, and she will bear you a son, and you will rejoice with him. When your child shall have gone forth from his mother's womb, your firstborn son that has been born these 2 years back shall die, and you will be comforted in the child that will be born unto you this day. And Yosef finished speaking these words to the king, and he bowed down to the king, and he went out. And when Yosef had gone out from the king's presence, those signs which Yosef had spoken unto the king came to pass on that day. And the queen bore a son on that day. And the king heard the good news about his son, and he rejoiced. And when the reporter had gone forth from the king's presence, the king's servants found the firstborn son of the king fallen dead upon the ground. And there was great lamentation and noise in the king's house. And the king heard it, and he said, "What is the noise and lamentation that I have heard in the house?" And they told the king that his firstborn son had died. Then the king knew that all Yosef's words that he had spoken were correct. And the king was consoled for his son by the child that was born to him on that day, as Yosef had spoken. Chapter 49. After these things, the king sent and assembled all his officers and servants, and all the princes and nobles belonging to the king. And they all came before the king. And the king said unto them, "Behold, you have seen and heard all the words of this Ivri man, and all the signs which he declared would come to pass. And not any of his words have fallen to the ground. You know that he has given a proper interpretation of the dream, and it will surely come to pass. Now, therefore, take counsel, and know what you will do, and how the land will be delivered from the famine. Seek now and see whether the like can be found, in whose heart there is wisdom and knowledge. And I will appoint him over the land. For you have heard what the Ivri man has advised concerning this to save the land therewith from the famine. And I know that the land will not be delivered from the famine, but with the advice of the Ivri man, him that advised me." And they all answered the king and said, "The counsel which the Ivri has given concerning this is good. Now, therefore, our Adonai and king, behold, the whole land is in your hand. Do that which seems good in your sight. Him whom you choose, and whom you, in your wisdom, know to be wise and capable of delivering the land with his wisdom. Him shall the king appoint to be under him over the land." And the king said to all the officers, "I have thought that since Elohim has made known to the Ivri man all that he has spoken, there is none so discreet and wise in the whole land as he is. If it seems good in your sight, I will place him over the land, for he will save the land with his wisdom." And all the officers answered the king and said, "But surely it is written in the laws of Mitzrayim, and it should not be violated, that no man shall reign over Mitzrayim, nor be the second to the king, but one who has knowledge in all the languages of the sons of men. Now therefore, our Adonai and the king, behold, this Ivri man can only speak the Ivrit language. And how then can he be over us the second under government? A man who not even knows our language? Now we pray you, send for him, and let him come before you, and prove him in all things, and do as you see fit." And the king said, "It shall be done tomorrow, and the thing that you have spoken is good." And all the officers came on that day before the king. And on that night, Yahuwah sent one of his ministering angels, and he came into the land of Mitzrayim unto Yosef. And the angel of Yahuwah stood over Yosef, and behold, Yosef was lying in the bed at night in his Adonai's house in the dungeon, for his Adonai had put him back into the dungeon on account of his woman. And the angel roused him from his sleep, and Yosef rose up and stood upon his legs. And behold, the angel of Yahuwah was standing opposite to him. And the angel of Yahuwah spoke with Yosef, and he taught him all the languages of man in that night. And he called his name Yahuwaseph. And the angel of Yahuwah went from him, and Yosef returned and lay upon his bed. And Yosef was astonished at the vision which he saw. And it came to pass in the morning that the king sent for all his officers and servants, and they all came and sat before the king. And the king ordered Yosef to be brought. And the king's servants went and brought Yosef before Pharaoh. And the king came forth and ascended the steps of the throne. And Yosef spoke unto the king in all languages. And Yosef went up to him and spoke unto the king until he arrived before the king in the 70th step. And he sat before the king. And the king greatly rejoiced on account of Yosef. And all the king's officers rejoiced greatly with the king when they heard all the words of Yosef. And the thing seemed good in the sight of the king and the officers to appoint Yosef to be second to the king over the whole land of Mitzrayim. And the king spoke to Yosef, saying, Now you did give me counsel to appoint a wise man over the land of Mitzrayim, in order with his wisdom to save the land from the famine. Now, therefore, since Elohim has made all this known to you, and all the words which you have spoken, there is not throughout the land a discreet and wise man like unto you. And your name no more shall be called Yosef, but Zophnath Pachnich shall be your name. You shall be second to me, and according to your word shall be all the affairs of my government. And at your word shall my people go out and come in. Also, from under your hand shall my servants and officers receive their salary, which is given to them monthly. And to you shall all the people of the land bow down. Only in my throne will I be greater than you. And the king took off his ring from his hand and put it down and put it upon the hand of Yosef. And the king dressed Yosef in a princely garment, and he put a golden crown upon his head. And he put a golden chain upon his neck. And the king commanded his servants, and they made him ride in the second chariot belonging to the king, that went opposite to the king's chariot. And he caused him to ride upon a great and strong horse from the king's horses, and to be conducted through the streets of the land of Mitzrayim. And the king commanded that all those that played upon timbrels, harps, and other musical instruments should go forth with Yosef. 1,000 timbrels, 1,000 mecholoth, and 1,000 nebelim went after him. And 1,000 nebelim went after him. And 5,000 men with drawn swords glittering in their hands. And they went marching and playing before Yosef. And 20,000 of the great men of the king, girt with belts of skin covered with gold, marched at the right hand of Yosef, and 20,000 at his left. And all the women and damsels went upon the roofs or stood in the streets, playing and rejoicing at Yosef, and gazed at the appearance of Yosef and at his beauty. And the king's people went before him and behind him, perfuming the road with frankincense and with cassia, and with all sorts of fine perfume, and scattered myrrh and aloes along the road. And 20 men proclaimed these words before him throughout the land in a loud voice. Do you see this man whom the king has chosen to be his second? All the affairs of the government shall be regulated by him, and he that transgresses his orders or that does not bow down before him to the ground shall die. For he rebels against the king and his second. And when the heralds had ceased proclaiming, all the people of Mitzrayim bowed down to the ground before Yosef and said, May the king live. Also may his second live. And all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim bowed down along the road, and when the heralds approached them, they bowed down. And they rejoiced with all sorts of timbrels, Mechol and Nebal before Yosef. And Yosef upon his horse lifted up his eyes to heaven and called out and said, He raises the poor man from the dust. He lifts up the needy from the dunghill. O Yahuwah Sevaot, happy is the man who trusts in you. And Yosef passed throughout the land of Mitzrayim with Pharaoh's servants and officers, and they showed him the whole land of Mitzrayim and all the king's treasures. And Yosef returned and came on that day before Pharaoh. And the king gave unto Yosef a possession in the land of Mitzrayim, a possession of fields and vineyards. And the king gave unto Yosef 3,000 talents of silver and 1,000 talents of gold, and onyx stones, and bdellium, and many gifts. And on the next day the king commanded all the people of Mitzrayim to bring unto Yosef offerings and gifts, and that he that violated the command of the king should die. And they made a high place in the streets of the city, and they spread out garments there. And whosoever brought anything to Yosef put it into the high place. And all the people of Mitzrayim cast something into the high place, one man a golden earring, and the other rings and earrings, and different vessels of gold and silver work. And onyx stones and bdellium did he cast upon the high place. Everyone gave something of what he possessed. And Yosef took all these and placed them in his treasuries. And all the officers and nobles belonging to the king exalted Yosef. And they gave him many gifts, seeing that the king had chosen him to be his second. And the king sent to Potipharah, the son of Ahiram, priest of On, and he took his young daughter, Asenath, and gave her unto Yosef for a woman. And the damsel was very comely, a virgin, one whom man had not known. And Yosef took her for a woman. And the king said unto Yosef, I am Pharaoh, and beside you none shall dare to lift up his hand or his foot to regulate my people throughout the land of Mitzrayim. And Yosef was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh. And Yosef went out from before the king, and he became the king's second in Mitzrayim. And the king gave Yosef 100 servants to attend him in his house. And Yosef also sent and purchased many servants, and they remained in the house of Yosef. And Yosef then built for himself a very magnificent house, like unto the house of kings, before the court of the king's palace. And he made in the house a large temple, very elegant in appearance and convenient for his residence. 3 years was Yosef in erecting his house. And Yosef made unto himself a very elegant throne of abundance of gold and silver, and he covered it with onyx stones and bdellium. And he made upon it the likeness of the whole land of Mitzrayim, and the likeness of the river of Mitzrayim that waters the whole land of Mitzrayim. And Yosef sat securely upon his throne in his house, and Yahuwah increased Yosef's wisdom. And all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim and Pharaoh's servants and his princes loved Yosef exceedingly, for this thing was from Yahuwah to Yosef. And Yosef had an army that made war, going out in hosts and troops, to the number of 40,600 men, capable of bearing arms to assist the king and Yosef against the enemy, beside the king's officers and his servants and inhabitants of Mitzrayim without number. And Yosef gave unto his mighty men and to all his host shields and javelins and caps and coats of mail and stones for slinging. That is the end of chapter 49. Psalms, Tehilliym, chapter 73. A Mizmor of Asaph. Truly Elohim is good to Yasharel, even to such as are of a clean heart. But as for me, my feet were almost gone. My steps had well nigh slipped. For I was envious at the foolish, when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For there are no bands in their death, but their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasses them about as a chain. Violence covers them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than their hearts could wish. They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walks through the earth. Therefore his people return hither, and waters of a full cup are wrung out to them. And they say, how does El know? And is there knowledge in El Elyon? Behold, these are the wicked, who prosper in the world. They increase in riches. Truly, I have cleansed my heart in vain and washed my hands in innocence. For all day long have I been plagued and chastened every morning. And chastened every morning. If I say I will speak thus, behold, I should offend against the generation of your children. When I thought to know this, it was too painful for me, until I went into the sanctuary of El. Then I understood their end. Surely you did set them in slippery places. You cast them down into destruction. How are they brought into desolation as in a moment? They are utterly consumed with terrors, as a dream when one awakens so. Excuse me. As a dream when one awakens. So, O Adonai, when you awake, you shall despise their image. Thus my heart was grieved, and I was pricked in my mind. So foolish was I and ignorant. I was I was as a beast before you. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You have held me by my right hand. You shall guide me with your counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is none upon earth that I desire beside you. My flesh and my heart fails, but Elohim is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. For lo, they that are far from you shall perish. You have destroyed all of them that go a whoring from you. But it is good for me to draw near to Elohim. I have put my trust in Adonai Yahuwah, that I may declare all your works. All praise and glory to the Most High Yah. I put my trust in Adonai Yahuwah, in the Father. And I thank you to the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach, for willingly giving your life, for being the blood atonement, so that we find grace, have grace, and faith in the way to the Father. Thank you so much for being our blood atonement, for being that Passover lamb. Thank you, Father. Thank you to the Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. I pray this is a blessing to you, and may you feel restored as this Shabbat is upon us. Remember the Sabbath. That is the fourth commandment. Remember the Shabbat. Rest, study, rejoice in the works and the covenants, in the mercy of our Father, and also in the work that was finished by the Son, Yahusha. He is our high priest. But we have only one Father, one El, and that is Yahuwah. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you for following along, and I will see you in the next reading. Shabbat Shalom.